Welcome to second season of VYAPT Global Growth Series. Our initiative has helped thousands of people regain hope in this crisis, and they are optimistic of the future ahead. Organizations partnering us in this series has also gained traction through our coverage, reach, and their narrative, as our views reaches more than 7 lakhs per episode cumulative on all platforms. It is also the starting of the festive season for the major part of the globe, and it's our prime responsibility is to stick to our objective, we care, and continue to instill hope as the global numbers affected by this crisis is alarming. As we continue to do this on a global platform, our resolve gets stronger and commitment deeper to see a world which is not just connected by network but by hearts, where we feel the pain of the people around us and we do our bit in whatever possible ways to help them. Growth of any organization is based on the fact that how do they utilize tough times. It's time to shower our love, compassion, and tell the world that you care. In our episode today, we have with us Mr. G.V. Prasad, CEO, India and Global Head of Fulfillment at Sterling, with close to 3 decades of experience and is known to take businesses to new heights. Sterling conducts more than 100 million searches annually. Looks like a great business proposition. Welcome to our series, Mr. Prasad.
Thank you, Pankaj. It's a great initiative by VYAPT, and I'm very glad to be part of this particular initiative.
We start with our first curiosity. Last 2 quarters, we have witnessed a huge loss of life, income, and a slump in economies across the globe. But what are the opportunities, if any, has this crisis created for the industry you operate your business?
Sure. So, Pankaj, we are in the business of background screening and identity verification with the purpose of providing our clients a very safe foundation when it comes to hiring of resources, who are obviously the most critical asset any organization can have. So to that extent, what we have seen is that the opportunity has got presented in multiple forms. First and foremost, there are many organizations which continued hiring during the period of COVID and now obviously are accelerating their growth. And therefore, it actually allows us to continue to partner with them and provide our services so that they can hire the right resources and obviously ensure that the entire workplace is more safer. On the other hand, what we've realized is that this particular period has also given rise for us to get a bit more innovative and launch products and services which are very, very unique and which are very, very relevant in today's period. So just to give you an example, on the US side of our business, we've actually launched certain products and services which enables the companies to screen their employees effectively before they bring them back to the workplace. Because I think all the organizations right now are very concerned on the overall safety factor. And therefore, they want to be very, very sure that they have good, simple solutions to screen and get their own existing employees back so that they're not risking people when they're making them work back in office. So that's one example. Similarly, in the Indian market, because of the lockdown and the fact that you could not have people moving across very, very effectively, there are very specific tech-oriented solutions that one has come up with, which has helped us to redefine our products not only for this particular period, but also for the future time to come, which I think helps the organizations in a very, very effective way because it makes the whole screening process more efficient and also at the same time much more faster than what it has been. And I think at the same time, I think it gives rise to making sure that we are able to push the proposition to a lot of organizations about the changing habits of personnel during this period of time. So just let's take an example of social media, right? I think the last few months, people have been hooked on to social media, online thing, much more than what they were in the past. So while obviously that's a great trend in itself, but it also poses a lot of challenge because many organizations have very strict policies around what you can do on the social media front, what you can post, what you cannot post, and things like that. And therefore, it gives rise to organizations wanting us to actually screen many of their candidates on things like social media and global searches and things like those, so that they can be comfortable, that the employees, especially when they're operating remotely right now, and many of them might end up operating remotely in the future, are conforming to the communication standards that the organizations has laid down for them. So I think those are some of the facets where we are seeing some interesting trends. And I think we are pretty bullish about the fact that I think there are obviously opportunities. And I think time will tell in terms of how much those opportunities manifest itself in terms of the actual business growth.
So, when you talk about that, there are certain growth opportunities which might come up in the future, and there is obviously, this pandemic has created a fear factor, but at the same point of time, it has created an opportunity for the scrutiny of different people coming to your organization even more strictly. So, what are the growth prospects of this industry in the next 2 quarters in South Asia region, and what kind of transformations are required in this changing landscape?
So I'm pretty bullish about the growth prospects across many industries, including the industry that I operate in. I think we are already reading a lot about healthcare as an industry growing at a very fast pace. IT seems to be on its way for revival. We are talking about on-demand economy because of a lot of e-commerce related activities and all, again, growing. So I think overall, it seems that organizations have already started the revival, and the organizations are working with a completely different level of energy now, because I think the mentality which is the organizations approaching this is that they want to catch up on lost time, and this year a lot of time was lost because of obviously certain COVID related issues. So to that extent, I think overall organizations are growing fast, and they would continue to be pretty aggressive in the marketplace. But at the same time, the one thing organizations are being very cautious about is that the growth does not come at any which way at the expense of safety. So they still want to be sure that the workforce is very, very safe. And at the same time, I think they want to be sure that they are hiring the right set of people, because a cost of wrong hiring today is probably going to pinch an organization much more than what it pinched them, say, a few months back or so. So to that extent, I think there's ample opportunity from a growth, and that's what we are seeing. So again, going back to the industry that I operate in, I think it allows us to partner with these different companies in different industries, because these organizations really require a very effective background screening solution, and that's what we end up providing to them. And I think at the same time, many organizations which probably did not believe in the concept of background screening or had a very lightweight program around it, I think are increasingly seeing, or hopefully will see, the need to augment that entire program. And I think that gives us a great opportunity to try and grow multifold in all these sectors as such. Coming back to the second part of your question about the transformation required, I would say that the transformation can be categorized in three different buckets. First and foremost is around technology. I think increasingly organizations have realized that the need of technology and being innovative around a technology solution, whether it is in the form of artificial intelligence, whether it is in the form of building integrations with data sources, whether it's in the form of just ensuring that you have very, very quick platforms to operate on, is becoming critical. And I think that's probably going to be the name of the game for many more months to come, because I think organizations which are able to transform their technology program and make the technology to become even a more key enabler for their business, I think are going to succeed in the longer run. So that's one significant transformation. I think the other transformation is going to be around the type of products and services that you offer to the consumers. And so consumer can be a business organization, your consumer can be an individual. Doesn't matter which industry you are in. I think there's a huge opportunity to redefine some of your products and services, especially catering to the anxieties people have at this point of time, and more importantly, the way people are going to work in the future, basically. So I think this entire aspect of looking at your products and services, redefining them, I think gives again a great opportunity, and is probably going to require a transformation, because these are probably not going to be small incremental changes. but probably redefining the way you're doing business in itself. So, and the third element, which is always close to my heart, is around people and culture, right? I think that itself is going to undergo a transformation because I think all of us know the fact that probably the workforce will not continue to operate in the future the way they were operating during the pre-COVID era. So that calls for making changes in terms of the way people work. How do we connect with different individuals? How are your HR policies? Are they savvy enough to try and work with different sets of people who are working, say, remotely? What are your recruitment practices like? Because you might be able to tap into workforce which earlier you were not able to do because you were either wanting to have people from the same industry or people coming to work from office. Now you don't care. You might be in one part of the country and somebody can be operating from a different part of the country. And if your business allows to do that, you are probably looking to hire such a set of individuals and all. And at the same time, how do you keep your employees engaged? Because end of the day, we should not undermine the impact that this remote working has had in terms of people probably getting a bit drained out, people be feeling a bit aloof because of the whole social distancing. You're probably not having those coffee conversations during in the office corridors any longer and things like that. So I think to that particular extent, the ability to connect with people is also needs probably some transformational type of initiative. So I think between technology, products and services, and people and HR practices, I think there will be some significant transformations and significant learnings that we'll have from each other. And I think that's going to pave the way in terms of how the growth in the future would look like.
That sounds very optimistic, Mr. Prasad. And can you also tell us a bit about which all industries do you operate in? Are you limiting yourself to only IT industry or pharmaceutical, or you operate in many industries across the globe?
No, we actually operate in multiple industries, Pankaj, because our clients are spread across different industries, ranging from healthcare, financial services, retail, on-demand, manufacturing, and so on. We realized that different industries have different dynamics, and therefore even our value proposition to the different industries has to be very, very different. Because somebody who's probably hiring, say, people to do delivery of groceries has very, very different background screening requirements than a financial institution who's handling or who's probably recruiting somebody to handle a huge amount of financial assets, basically. So to that particular extent, I think our focus is on different industries, and a lot of our products and services are also customized to these particular industry requirements also. Coming very specifically to your question around the industries and the growth on those particular industries, I think we are seeing some good traction across different industries. Needless to say that industries like healthcare and IT are seeing some good traction right now. But at the same time, we see industries like on-demand, which is also increasing a lot, because I'm sure all of us have increased the quantum of home deliveries that we get right now, or for that matter of fact, the whole quantum of trying to avail for services without having to move from our respective places. So I think these are the type of industries that we are seeing some good traction in, at least at this point of time, basically. Yeah.
Looks like you would be the lifeline of all the recruitments happening across the globe, in some time now, because that is the necessity of the hour. And I really believe that the kind of services which you are sharing with the world is going to shape the world to become a better place. My next curiosity has to do more about the job prospects, because when we talk about this particular crisis, it has taken a lot of jobs, from economies across the globe. It's not only about one country, but I'm talking about hundreds of countries put together. So what are the job prospects or entrepreneurship opportunities would this growth create?
It's a pretty interesting question, Pankaj, and I'll write a lot around what I've been observing and reading of late around what's going on, besides obviously our own experience in this field. I think the job prospects are coming from multiple sources right now. Okay. One is obviously there are certain industries which are ramping up now really fast and are trying to catch up on lost time. So that surely creates employment opportunities. Maybe the employment terms could be a bit different than what they used to be earlier, but the opportunities surely exist. And that's where, as I stated, some of the industries like on demand and financial services and all are seeing a relatively better, uptake around on that particular front. So I think those opportunities will continue, and if people have the right skill sets, and if they have also used this period of COVID of 2020 to actually upskill their skill sets, I think that is going to really help them to get those particular jobs. So that's one aspect of where it's coming from. The other aspect is, I think there are some very, very interesting entrepreneurial ventures and ideas that are, I think, floating around right now. I was reading about 3D printing and how 3D printing industry now can become the next big thing, because hospitals need that and many institutions need that. And that business, which was probably a very, very limited business, probably is going to be a growing business right now. Okay. Work from anywhere solutions. This is something that we never talked about and never thought about, at least till about a year back. And there are organizations and certain entrepreneurial ventures which are erupting, which are actually offering very, very specific work from anywhere solutions, because organizations want that they give the flexibility to people, but at the same time, they're obviously worried about data privacy related issues. They're obviously concerned also about things like how do you engage with the workforce, what should be the type of infrastructure setup which should happen to facilitate this entire thing. So when I was reading about some of these organizations offering solutions to to bigger companies on how to actually work from anywhere, I think it's probably a business line which was never ever explored too much in the past, basically. Similarly, this entire thing around on-demand type of thing, basically, it's interesting, right? Who thought some months back that there will be opportunities and people may not like to go to a barber's shop, right? And they might like to have somebody coming and taking care of you at your home, basically, and things like that. So these are the type of services, again, which are coming up in a very big manner. There have been a few others that I've sort of read and heard about, like, for example, the education sector. Increasingly you see the online education becoming a norm, basically, or so. And people also realize that because of the fact that people want to upskill themselves because they know that it's going to be a tough market situation in the future. There are a lot of entrepreneurial ventures which are teaching you how to just build your skill sets so that you are able to get ready for the next phase of your professional career and things like that, basically. So I think there are huge opportunities. Probably a few of them have not even been thought of at this point of time, which will obviously come up in the near future. But surely enough, I think if someone has an innovative mind, I think there are huge opportunities which people can exploit across the board. And the few that I stated are the ones which I'm anyway seeing are actually seeing the light of the day and actually seeing some good amount of traction.
I think that's going to spread hope to the major part of the world, because people are looking at jobs, and if every industry is going to create jobs for maybe some or the other kind of people and some or the other kind of skill sets, I'm sure we are going to see a bright future in coming quarter.
Absolutely hope for that, Pankaj. I think optimism is a way of life, and that's how I like to live my life. And I think that's the one that all of us actually are striving for.
So my next curiosity has to do with you as a leader, which is very, very significant for this particular series. What does crisis mean to you as a leader, and how should we ensure that our hope does not fade in this time of global crisis? Because people are looking at you to give some kind of maybe your experience or some kind of your understanding on this. I'm sure in around the 27, 28 years of your career so far, you might have faced a lot of maybe sinusoidal waves in your career as well, and I'm sure in your personal life as well. But if you could give some kind of probably narrative from your side to the people who are watching our show, that would be really great.
Sure, Pankaj, and First and foremost, I'll say thanks for coming up with that question. It's a very profound question, and it's a question which obviously continues to be a challenge for all the leaders. Because I think it's pretty interesting. How do you keep your hope alive, and how do you keep your outlook to be positive during this period? So first and foremost, I think Pankaj, for me, crisis means that you need to acknowledge that things are not going as per plan. Okay, and you need to change the approach of how you're doing your day-to-day work. Okay, whether it is in your professional space or whether the way you're leading your personal life to overcome the challenges that any particular crisis might offer. I think that acknowledgement and the need to change is probably the first step, because if you don't do that, then you cannot necessarily carry out the activities or have the right mindsets to tackle that particular issue. I think the other critical thing is to make sure that one is able to, with a very clear mind, analyze the situation and try to come up with thoughts around how you want to do your business or how you want to operate in your personal space differently than what you have been doing in the past. And I think that analysis is very, very critical, because any type of crisis or any type of, I would say, untoward situation brings a lot of noise around with it. And when I say noise, it's like there's an actual issue and there's a lot of paraphernalia around with it. So the ability to distinguish between the two, look at what the core issue is, and try to come up with thoughts and process about how you want to go about addressing that particular issue and executing on that particular front is very, very critical in nature. And that's where at least one of the things that I learned a bit hard way earlier part of my life was that many a times in these type of situations, I think the speed of execution takes precedence over precision, because many a times you have to try out different things and do different things to overcome the challenges. And if you are at times waiting or procrastinating too much to get that most perfect solution, maybe there's no most perfect solution. There's probably a combination of things that you need to do to overcome them. So I think the entire speed of execution is probably very, very key. And I think the third element for me is about knowing who are the people who you need around with you at that point of time, and making sure that they are aligned with you and they are working with you on the whole aspect, basically. Okay, this goes back again to your workplace with your colleagues, or it can go in your personal life with your family members and friends and others. It's important that you know who are the ones who are standing up with you and who are in the same journey. And again, having the ability to have a very fair and transparent conversation with them and aligning them to the whole thought and approach about taking things forward. So I think, at least personally, what's worked for me well, and I've obviously learned from many other leaders in my journey on this particular front, is that if you are able to think clearly, analyze the issue, come up with plans to execute, doesn't have to be the most perfect of plans, but at least you are executing with, I would say, a relentless focus. And same time, you are ensuring that you have very clear identity or indications on people around with you and you're working with them. I think that takes you to a long distance, basically. The second part of your question was more about how do you keep the faith and the hope alive in these type of situations. I think end of the day, it's all about attitude, right? I think life teaches you, and over a period of time, that no situation is ever constant. And this might sound like a cliche because many people would have said that, but that's the reality of life. Okay, the crisis which you might be encountering right now never existed earlier. Okay, but it came in right now, and therefore it will never exist in the future because something else will come across and something else will be a transition. So I think the ability and recognizing the fact that nothing is permanent, and therefore each of them has to be addressed with that particular merit, I think can give a lot of hope, because there's a lot of people who keep saying, is there light at the end of the tunnel? Yeah, there is surely light at the end of the tunnel, because there's no tunnel which will continue for eternity, right? Basically. So to that particular extent, I think having that particular positive outlook is important. I think the other aspect around that is to try and see how you can develop the mindset of converting a crisis into an opportunity. So as the saying goes, never waste a good crisis, right? So to that extent, I think that crisis might actually push you a bit for you to think about changing your habits. It could be changing habits in your personal life, changing habits in terms of how you operate and how you work, changing in way that you interact with different individuals and things like that. So I think having that learning mindset helps a lot to generate that positive attitude that one needs to have. I think the other aspect is how do you keep yourself engaged? Okay, and it was amazing to see the number of articles, during this whole COVID phase. It's about pick up a hobby, do things that you really like to do. Basically, I'm a big movie buff myself, so I think I've probably ended up watching a lot of stuff around Netflix and Amazons and others of the world, just because that's my way of unwinding, things around that particular thing. I've been encouraging my son to learn guitar during this particular period, and he's able to do a lot of things online because now his online classes don't take his entire day. Therefore, he can strike a great balance behind this entire thing. So I think the ability to probably do things that are of interest to you and engaging in those particular activities, can really help the cause to a great extent. And I think finally, it's all about just knowing that life is bigger than any of the small issues that we encounter. It's a big journey. It's a long journey in itself. And the fact that, any of these situations can be very, very effectively managed. And if you have the right mindset and if you can reach out to the right people, you have a lot of help surrounding you is the thought process that you need to work with. So I think if one can keep a positive attitude on some of these things and keep a fairly good mental health, and engaging with the right conversations with right people, trying to use the opportunity to learn more, I think that's what breeds a lot of hope and a lot of optimism. And I am personally a big fan of what is called as positive imaging. It's something that I read and learned long time back. You image yourself to be in a great positive situation. More often than not, things fall in place if you are really looking forward to it. So that's at least been some of the tips that I have personally used for myself over the years, and which I keep sharing with some of my colleagues and friends, whenever we are discussing. And I hope that's of help to some of the audience who are going to be hearing this.
I'm sure this would be of much help to the people seeing our episode. And it was really good interacting with you. Thank you so much for your mind and heart talks, Mr. Prasad.
Thank you once again, Pankaj. And as I stated, this is a great initiative by VYAPT. I've gone through some of your other series, and I think it really is the most apt thing to do at this point of time when we want to spread positiveness across the board. And thank you for inviting me. And I'm really glad that I could share some of my perspectives with you.
Thank you.